Hey GMATers, I'm back with another interesting SC concept. Tell me something. Do you know what a to-verb phrase or a to-infinitive phrase is? And do you struggle to solve hard SC questions on to-verb phrases? Well, if that applies to you, then you've come to the right place. In this video presentation, I'm going to be explaining to-verb phrases in detail. And I'm also going to show you a couple of hard SC questions that test us on the concept of to-verb phrases. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. Let's start by taking a look at one such hard official SC question. Here is that question on your screens. Please pause this video and give this question a fair attempt. We do not want you to have any spoilers along the way. Alright, assuming that you've solved this question, let's quickly take a look at the statistics. As you can see, only 29% managed to get this question right. And B and C are the most favorite incorrect choices, with 28% marking B and 31% marking answer choice C. So what's really going on in this question? Let's dive in. It's very easy to eliminate answer choices C, D, and E. Why? Well, if you look at answer choice C carefully, you can see that there is an idiomatic error, a pretty obvious one, which is trying to recover uranium out of seawater, trying to recover X out of Y. Now, we don't recover something out of something, we recover something from something, right? For this reason, answer choice C is incorrect. And as you can see, even answer choice D has the exact same error. And E, of course, is pretty nonsensical because it says recovering uranium from seawater may be worthwhile to try to do someday. Worthwhile to try to do someday, right? It's pretty easy to eliminate answer choice E. I'd like to draw your attention to answer choices A and B. Now, if you look closely, we see a very stark difference here. A says it may someday be worthwhile to try to recover uranium from seawater, whereas choice B says someday it may be worthwhile to try and recover uranium from seawater. This is the most prominent difference between answer choices A and B. And just on the principle of the to-verb phrase and how it is supposed to be used in sentences, we can crack this pretty hard official SC question in a matter of seconds. Hello everybody, my name is Abhishek Raj. I'm a verbal expert here at e-GMAT. And the topic for today is the to-verb phrase. Now before we dive into the details, let's quickly understand or refresh what exactly a to-verb phrase is. Now, as the name suggests, it consists of two words. First, the preposition to, and then right after it, a verb in its base form. What do I mean by base form? Well, it's simple present plural form. What is the simple present plural form of dances? Well, it would be dance. So, if we were to make a to-verb phrase out of dances or dancing, it would be to dance. Okay, with that out of the way, let's dive into the functions or applications of to-verb phrases. Here you have the first application on your screens. That's right. A to-verb phrase is most commonly used as a noun. How's that? Well, let's take a look. To err is human. Now, a very simple sentence, in fact, a very common saying, right? To err is human, to forgive divine. Now, what is the subject of the sentence? And which part of speech actually does the work of a subject? That's right, a noun. Does this sentence have a subject? Does it have a verb? Yes, it does. If you look closely, you'll see that is the verb. And what is the thing that is human? Well, the subject is to err. That means to make mistakes is human. Now notice how a to-verb phrase does the work of a noun by behaving as the subject. But then nouns can also behave as objects in sentences. So let's take a look at another sentence. I love to sing. I love cricket. I love to study. I love dancing. I love swimming, right? The verb love is capable of taking an object, and in this particular sentence, the object is an action, the action of singing. Now, I'm sure you're aware that a verb ing word can also behave as a noun. It's called a gerund. But it's not the only thing that is capable of denoting an action as a noun. Even two verb phrases denote actions in the noun form. As simple as that. Now, let's quickly take a look at an official example. Since the 1930s, aircraft manufacturers have tried to build airplanes with frictionless wings. Wings so smooth and so perfectly shaped that the air passing over them would not become turbulent. If you have been following our channel, you know that we have discussed this question in one of our earlier videos. But I'd like to draw your attention right now to the two-verb phrase to build. What is it doing in this official sentence? Well, let's start from the beginning. Since 1930s, aircraft manufacturers. So we can see that here lies our subject. What is the verb? They have tried. So we have tried as the verb. But this verb, try, takes an object. They have tried something. What have they tried? They have tried an action. What is that action? To build airplanes. So this two-verb phrase behaves as the object of the verb, and therefore it is an example of a two-verb phrase as a noun. So see how simple it is? I mean, this thing is so common, we see it every single day, but we seldom take the time out to actually analyze what such phrases do in sentences. I hope this has become clear to you. Let's move forward and look at the next function of a two-verb phrase. The second role of a two-verb phrase is as a noun modifier, or in other words, an adjective. For example, she does not have anything to wear. Interesting. Now, she does not have anything. Now, we know we have a subject here. We know we have the verb does not have. The object of this verb have is anything, right? It's a pronoun, which is equivalent to a noun, right? And then we have a two-verb phrase, to wear, placed right after anything. The question is, what is this two-verb phrase telling us? Well, it is describing anything. It is giving us more information about anything. She does not have anything. Just imagine if I were to end the sentence right after anything. Would it make sense? She does not have anything. But if you want to refine the context a little bit further and specify anything in what sense, right? Is it anything as in she's absolutely broke and has nothing with her, or she doesn't have something of a specific kind? Yes, if I want to create such a context, I can further qualify the anything with the help of a two-verb phrase and say she does not have anything to wear. So here, this behaves as a noun modifier. Let's look at another example, this time in the subject. The right thing to do is to apologize for your behavior. The subject here is the right thing to do. The verb is, right? The right thing to do is to apologize for your behavior. Now, I'm sure you must have noticed that the main subject noun here is thing. But just as we in the previous example, we qualified anything by saying anything to wear, here anybody could ask us, thing as in what thing? The thing, which thing? I mean, are you talking about a book? Are you talking about something abstract? Hold on. The thing to do. So we're talking about an action. When I say the thing, by thing I mean a certain action. And when I say right, I further qualify the action by saying the correct action to perform is to apologize for your behavior. But how do we say it using a two-verb phrase? The right thing to do. So to do qualifies the noun thing by giving us more information about it. So yes, you guessed right, to do is a noun modifier. Now, this might come as a bit of a surprise to you, or it might be absolutely new learning for you. Please make a note of it somewhere. Try to absorb this information because it will pay dividends in the long run. Let's take a look at an official example. Although the company's executives admitted that there had been accounting irregularities involving improper reporting of revenue and failure to record expenses, they could not yet say precisely how much money was involved. Okay, that's a bit of a mouthful. Let's break it down, okay? Although the company's executives, so we have here a contrast clause, right? A DC starting with although. The subject is the company's executives. What did they do? They admitted to something. What did they admit? They admitted that there had been, okay, so this is the verb, and then we have the subject after it, right? So what we see here is an inverted structure within this that clause. That, instead of saying accounting irregularities had been there, the author has reversed the order, which is a very common occurrence in written English, in standard English. That there had been, okay, verb, accounting irregularities, so this is our subject, main subject, involving improper reporting of revenue, okay, and failure to record expenses. All right, so let's process this. It says accounting irregularities. So it's related to accounting. Accounting here qualifies. So this is the modifier describing the subject word irregularities. These accounting irregularities involved improper reporting of revenue. Okay, so revenue has to do with accounting. So this makes sense. And failure to record expenses. Can we also call this an accounting irregularity? Failure to record expenses? Of course we can. That means the structure that we see in the subject is accounting irregularities involving X and Y. Accounting irregularities involving X, improper reporting, and failure Y, to record expenses. So these two words, reporting, noun 1, and failure, noun 2, are the objects of this verb ing modifier involving. Do you see it? Right. In case you don't, you're free to create a sentence structure, break it down, and I'm sure you'll be able to see it, right? I've already shown you how to create a sentence structure in each and every one of my previous videos, right? So please go ahead and, figure this out if you're not able to follow right now. But I think this is, pretty doable, right? Now, I would like to draw your attention to the to-verb phrase to record. What is this to-verb phrase doing here? Do you see that it adds more meaning to the noun failure? If you remember, failure was the object of involving improper reporting and involving failure to record expenses. So to record tells me what kind of failure. Failure is a very broad term, but if I say failure to record, it's a specific kind of failure, which is why this to-verb phrase to record behaves as a noun modifier. Let's now take a look at the third application of a to-verb phrase. And this third application is as an action modifier. We saw to-verb phrases used as nouns, subjects and objects, as noun modifiers or adjectives. Now we're going to look at to-verb phrases as action modifiers. Let's look at some simple examples. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. This is a very popular nursery rhyme, right? But let's break it down from a grammatical perspective and see what's going on here, all right? So Jack and Jill clearly are the subjects. Went, okay, is the verb. Up the hill modifies, tells us where they went. And then to fetch a pail of water. Do you see that this is a to-verb phrase that modifies the verb went by telling us why. Why did Jack and Jill go up the hill? They went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Let's look at another example. The politician came. Why did he come? To meet his son. So this tells us the reason why the politician visited. The politician came to meet his son. Now, this is the usage that most of us are familiar with, right? Because this is the use of a to-verb phrase to describe the intent behind an action. And that is absolutely correct. We use to-verb phrases as adverbs or action modifiers to tell us the intent behind that particular action or even a verbal derived from that particular action. Let's take a look at an official example very quickly. The foundation works to strengthen local and regional cultural markets and cooperates with governments to improve access for farmers to productive resources such as land and credit. All right, so again, a pretty daunting sentence, right? Quite intimidating, but if you're good at sentence structure analysis, it's going to be a breeze, right? Let's look at it. So we have the subject, the foundation, and then we have two verbs, works and cooperates. So we have V1 and V2. The foundation works to strengthen local and regional agricultural markets and cooperates with governments to improve access for farmers to productive resources such as land and credit. So because we have two verbs, right, we have a common subject that has two verb phrases connected with the connector and. So far, so good? All right, now let's draw our attention to the two verb phrases highlighted in this sentence, to strengthen and to improve. The first one is pretty easy to figure out. The foundation works to strengthen, right? Is this the object of works, or does it tell me why the foundation works? That's right, it tells us why the foundation works. What is the intent behind the workings of the foundation? The answer is, it works to strengthen local and regional agricultural markets. Similarly, the second verb, right, this was verb 1. Now we come to verb 2, which is cooperates. Okay, with whom? With governments. Why does the foundation cooperate with governments? Well, to improve. So this is qualifying cooperates. It tells us why the foundation cooperates with governments. To improve access for farmers to productive resources such as land and credit. You see how easy that was? Let's move ahead. Now we come to the fourth and final application of the to-verb phrase from a GMAT SC perspective. And you have it on your screens. This is the use of a to-verb phrase as a modifier of modifiers. I know that sounds strange. Modifier of modifiers. Well, if you have studied the basics of grammar, then you know that modifiers is a broad term for adjectives and adverbs, right? Noun modifiers are adjectives, action modifiers, and the modifier of everything else, comes under the category of, or rather come under the category of adverbs. Collectively, these are called modifiers. To-verb phrases can modify other such modifiers. For example, this question is easy to solve. Okay, so let's see if you can spot the modifier of the modifier. This question, subject, verb, is easy. As you can see, we have a modifier here, a noun modifier, easy, describing the subject question. So we know the question is easy. But easy in what way? Well, that's where our to-verb phrase comes into play. To solve tells us easy in what way? The question is easy to solve. Let's look at another example. Jane is old enough to decide for herself. Okay, so we have the subject Jane. We have the verb is. We have a noun modifier or adjective old describing Jane. But if I want to qualify old further and ask, how old is she? Well, she's old enough. We have a modifier of the noun modifier old. What do we call a modifier of an adjective? Well, it's called an adverb. That's correct, right? Or we can just call it a modifier of a modifier. But then there is more to the sentence. Jane is old enough to decide for herself. Okay. What is this phrase doing here? Is it telling us something about Jane? Is it modifying old? Or is it modifying enough? Now think about it. The answer is, it qualifies enough. She is old. Okay. How old? She's old enough. Enough in what sense? Old enough in what sense? Well, she's old enough. Is she old enough to drive? Is she old enough to live on her own? Right? Is she old enough to fend for herself? All right. In what way is she old enough? Well, she's old enough to decide for herself. So this to-verb phrase tells us how much is enough, or enough in what way. Do you see that? All right, let's quickly take a look at an official example. Turtles, like other reptiles, can endure long fasts because they are able to survive on weekly or even monthly feedings. However, when food is readily available, they may eat frequently and grow very fat. All right, interesting trivia about turtles. But I'd like to draw your attention to the to-verb phrase to survive. What is it doing in this sentence? Well, let's start from the beginning. Turtles, subject, can endure, verb. What can they endure or bear or tolerate? They can endure long fasts. This is our object here. Then we have the start of a dependent clause. We have the connector here, DC connector, because we have the subject they, are is the verb, and able is a noun modifier which describes they, and they in turn refers to turtles. So we know that turtles are able to survive. So able is a noun modifier and an adjective of turtles. But then if I ask you, able in what way? What are they able for? Right? They are able to survive. So to survive tells me how or in what way they are able. So there you have it. We just looked at the 4 applications of the to-verb phrase. Right? Now we're ready to go back to the official question we saw at the start of this presentation. Let's quickly take a look. So how do we figure out which of the two choices, A or B, is the right answer by applying what we have learned so far? Well, let's quickly dive into the meaning analysis. Here we have the original sentence of this question on your screen. All right? Okay. So let's start with sentence structure analysis and let's do meaning analysis side by side. Now, it may someday be worthwhile. Okay, let's put this here. It may someday be worthwhile. What may someday be worthwhile? Okay, it may someday be worthwhile to try. Interesting. To try what? To try to recover. To recover what? To recover uranium. Okay. Uranium? Uranium from where? Uranium from seawater. Interesting. So we have our first independent clause right here. Then we have our comma plus fanboys, but at present, this process is prohibitively expensive. I hope you can see how easily I was able to make this sentence structure. Right? So let me quickly add the bullets so that it's easier to process. And let's quickly highlight or identify the important parts of this sentence. Okay, so I'm going to use blue to mark the subject. Now, it is the subject of the first IC. It may someday be. What is the verb? It may be. Okay. What may it be? It may be worthwhile. All right. So what is worthwhile? And I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use, let's say, all right, I'm going to use this dark pink to underline worthwhile. Worthwhile is an adjective. It is a modifier which describes the subject it. But what is the it? Now, you may have learned this as a placeholder pronoun, and that's not entirely incorrect, right? But what does it actually refer to? Well, we have the thing that it talks about placed right here at the end of the sentence, and that is to try. To try to recover uranium from seawater may someday be worthwhile. Do you see that? So, technically, the subject of the sentence is to try. Okay? But we don't start the sentence this way. We first use a placeholder, it, we say, it may someday be worthwhile. And then at the end of the sentence, we place the to-verb phrase that the it refers to. Another example is, for example, it is imperative to work hard. Right? It is important to succeed, and so on and so forth, right? Now, I'm not going to get into the technical jargons of how this structure, comes into being. It's easy just to make yourself familiar that with such a structure, all right? So don't worry about technical jargon. I'm sure you've seen such sentences before. Just build on top of that, all right? Now, it may someday be worthwhile to try. Okay, now to try, try takes an object. So to try what? To try to recover. Okay, interesting. Recover what? Uranium from seawater. So far, pretty straightforward. But at present, this process, the next subject of the second IC, is the verb 2, prohibitively expensive. So expensive is another modifier right at the end, which we can highlight very quickly so that we, follow the same color coding. Now, I hope you see all the bits and pieces, line up. This brings us to the million-dollar question. Now, what is that question? Why is answer choice A correct and answer choice B incorrect? Well, from the looks of this, choice A seems fine because we know what it refers to, right? We know it may someday be worthwhile refers to try, okay? And to try takes an object, and a to-verb phrase such as to recover can behave as a noun object of the preceding to-verb phrase to try. To be very, very precise, of the verb try within the preceding to-verb phrase. But then yes, it is the object, right? So it does work as a noun. And now you understand this because we just learned it. So then what is the problem with answer choice B? If A is correct, what's wrong with B? So let's zoom in here a little bit, shall we? It may be worthwhile to try and recover uranium from seawater. Okay. So when we look at this word and, we see that and joins the two verbs try and recover inside the two-verb phrase. So what we have here is a compound two-word phrase with two verbs after to try and recover. Now, as you know, both these two-verb phrases require a noun object. Isn't that so? But when we look at answer choice B, we can make sense of to recover uranium. But what is the meaning of to try uranium? Do you see that uranium becomes the common object for the two-verb phrase to try and recover, which makes sense with recover, but not with try. I hope you see it. This was not the problem with answer choice A. To try, okay, to try what? To recover. And to recover what? Uranium. So this goes there and this goes there. So we have two objects in quick succession, which is why answer choice A was correct. So now let's take a look at the takeaways from today's session. We saw that two-verb phrases have 4 roles in sentences. First, they can behave as nouns. That is, you can find them as subjects and objects inside sentences. 2, they can behave as noun modifiers. In other words, they can behave as adjectives that describe or add more meaning to nouns. Third, we can find them as action modifiers, telling us the intent behind a certain action or a verbal derived from that action. And last but not least, we can find them as modifiers of other modifiers, right? As you know, we find adjectives and adverbs in sentences. Two-verb phrases can qualify those adjectives and adverbs by adding more meaning to them. Then we saw a very useful framework to solve hard questions on two-verb phrases. What was that framework? Well, sentence structure analysis. If you break down the sentence properly with proper indentation, you will be able to figure out the role of not just every group of words in that sentence, but also of every two-verb phrase. And you should be able to classify that two-verb phrase into one of these 4 neat categories. Most of the questions will get solved, at least the questions on two-verb phrases, can be tackled just by doing a proper sentence structure analysis. For the remaining few, there might be an idiom at play. Now, for those of you who are, shrugging at the thought of having to face idioms, let me tell you that the GMAT has de-emphasized idioms for a while now, for over a decade now, right? But yes, that does not mean that the GMAT does not test idioms at all. We still do find official questions with some of the most commonly used idioms in English, right? So if you're someone who's an avid reader or someone who uses English on a daily basis, trust me, you have nothing to worry about, right? Just practicing official questions should do the trick. As always, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. So here is the challenge for this edition. Please pause this video and give this question a shot. Watch out for the to-verb phrase. Don't forget to do sentence structure analysis and try to detect the role of the to-verb phrase. I want you to write down in the comments your answer, your analysis of the to-verb phrase, your idea of or notion of what the to-verb phrase actually does, in this particular question, right? So that I can evaluate your analysis, right? And not just evaluate the answer that you select in this particular question, right? And I hope you use proper sentence structure analysis and have fun while you solve this question. Well, that's all from me for now. I really enjoyed bringing this piece of information to you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll be back again soon, very soon, with another interesting video. But until then, thank you for watching. Happy learning.